What the hell is going on? 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 I travel far to be with you, then you leave me, girl. That's not cool. I never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? 'Cause I love you, I need you, and I see you grooving on the dance floor. I never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on, baby? Tell me what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? 'Cause there was a time you were here with me, girl. All things were fine, lost and happily, baby. Then you decide that you're not gonna be mine. Well, I lost my mind. This life is not for me. 'Cause I love you, I need you, and I see you grooving on the dance floor. I never thought that this could happen. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? Yeah. What the hell is going on? Tell me what the hell is going on? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on, baby? What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Call in America. My name is Kevin West, and I am super excited to come with you guys today. Today is an impromptu show. It's going to be all about Parler. We've got some amazing guests that are joining us today, and I'm just going to go ahead and add them to the stream right now. We've got the wonderful Mohib Zara. Welcome, Mohib. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you?
Hey, man, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. Next up, coming to the show, we have Peter Hirschberg. How are you today, Peter?
I'm great, and hello, Kelvin.
Hey, man, it's good to see you. So, folks, once again, we are live today. Call in America, man. This is the first episode of Call in America in 2021. Much happened, so we're super excited to kind of go through that. One of the big things that's happening is Parler is shutting down, and so we decided to come together and talk about it. So I'm going to pass the mic on over to pass the floor over to Peter, who's going to tell us all about what we're about to get into. Peter, the floor is yours.
Kelvin, we're having a party to celebrate or observe the shutting down of what's really become kind of a hate speech sensation in our nation, and kind of the homepage for what we've seen as an insurrection. It's odd for people to get together to celebrate the shutting down of a website or perhaps the end of speech. But on the other hand, it is also an observation or a celebration of the fact that this nation had a close call with an insurrection this week. The border between what is hate speech and is actually action, assassination plots, the obviously murderous stuff that went place on the Capitol this week. And this came to a head. As you know, for quite some time, there's been this conversation, should Twitter suppress the more outrageous remarks of Donald Trump? And going back to the 2016 election, a lot of people, were really upset that Facebook was not cracking down on kind of all of the Russian bots, the Russian posts, and the interfering with the election. And then this year, of course, President Trump got upset with Twitter because they were calling out things that were not factual. In that ferment, a right-wing website or what they would call a free speech place got created. Parler what unmoderated, you could be as hateful as you want, got created. And this really got accelerated in the last couple of months as Twitter and Facebook cracked down on the president and on hate speech. And then a lot of the leading leaders of the right wing, people like Mark Levin and the president himself, started saying, well, maybe we should leave for Twitter and Facebook and go somewhere else. And so Parler grew very, very quickly in the last couple of months. It was funded by the Mercers, the same people who brought you Cambridge Analytica. And then this came to a head this week, early in the week, of course, or on Wednesday, Thursday, Twitter and Facebook banned Trump, leaving Parler as the homepage for this stuff. 2 days ago, Apple and Google said, we are going to ban the Parler app, leaving then Parler perhaps on the web. And then Amazon Web Services, which hosts Parler, yesterday announced they're going to get cut off at midnight. And so I called up Mohib, who used to work at Amazon Web Services, and I said, midnight, is that midnight Saturday night or Sunday night? It turns out it's about 26 minutes from now. And so we are here.
I laugh every time I think about it.
To send it off.
We're going to set it off, Peter. Listen, I think that's absolutely amazing. So I'm super excited to have this show. Super excited to have the show. This is so funny. All these things that are going down. You know, one of the things that I hope to have happen tonight is that there's open discussion. We are going to open the phone lines in a little bit here, and we just want some honest conversation about all of this. So I'm going to turn it over to Mohib. Let's get into it, Mohib. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, all of what Peter said, but the thing about Parler is like it came to be right because of this fear that conservatives have that they're being silenced. And part of that, in my opinion, is that like they have bad values. When your values are repeatedly causing you to get banned or removed from platforms because you're violating terms and conditions, there might be something with your values. But Parler in itself, they created it, and the biggest problem with it to me, when it first came out, when I first checked it out of curiosity, and Peter and I will talk in a minute about like some of the weird shenanigans we did with our dummy accounts on Parler, but it's a poorly written app. It is insanely poorly written. And so, right, it was used as a platform to spread hate, right? And it caused this insurrection to occur. And it not necessarily directly caused, but it was definitely a big part of it. With so much unchecked stuff going on there, you can't have a platform that doesn't have moderation. And the way moderation works on Parler is because they want it to be this free place, no censorship directly from the company. So they have this rule where if you get 20 violations, then and it takes like 2 people to report something, which then counts as 1 violation point. So once you get 20 violation points, then you're booted off the platform. Otherwise, you can go through a verification process where you provide your social security number and your driver's license, and then they'll let you post links. Other than that, you won't be able to do anything other than post. So that is a horrible, horrible idea from a security perspective, and from a it's a nightmare when you're not moderating like that. That's going to go unchecked. And of course, all these conservative people are going to it. I mean, even here, was it Carrie Lake from Fox News 10 here? She's been bragging that she's had a Parler for years now. And so have all these other conservatives and Republicans. What's that?
Well, I was going to add, there's several things you can look at here. One is, as you're pointing out, it turns out just as an IT project, it was incredibly shoddy. And you can kind of take us through how, if you're going to design a social media platform, there are ways to design it. And if you're going to execute it, technically, it turns out there's a mess. There's that. And then there's the whole culture of Parler. As you and I have found.
It's terrifying. It's like, before we get into the culture, I'll tell you about the way it's written. So my favorite part about all of this is like, I am eating up its destruction. I won't lie. This is a delicious demise. I have been celebrating for days about this. It's a cherry on top. I think that's called being and as a person who's like very embedded in the hacker community, like, you would think I would be against something being censored and shut down. But in this case, this is absolutely hate speech. It is a horrible, unsafe place. It is an irresponsible platform because of how it's written. So I'm going to share a couple of things here One second here. So let's start with. Well, first off, I gotta share this, which is, without. So AWS is planning to shut down the servers here in a few minutes. After numerous employees, many that I know, former employees of AWS have called, and current employees have called for its shutdown. Similar to when people called for AWS to cease operations with ICE. And it happened. AWS is like, yeah, this violates terms and conditions. But without AWS also, not only is AWS banning them, Azure, which is Microsoft service, and Google has already removed them from the App Store. So I'm going to assume that Google is also going to remove them from, ban them from Google Cloud Platform, GCP.
Right.
So, and DigitalOcean also came out and said, no, they're not going to allow them on there. So they have nowhere to go other than to run it locally. And so John Metz, the CEO, has claimed that it's run on bare metal. So the reason he says this is when somebody builds on top of AWS, they have all these services, basically all these little Lego pieces of an application. Now, when you build on AWS infrastructure like that, there are ways to lift and shift, as we call it, where you build on one platform, but say you need to change for whatever reason, billing, or you get banned because you caused an insurrection. There's a way to move your stuff to another platform. They claim they didn't use all those interdependent services that are AWS specific, and they said they put it on bare metal, which we're assuming means they made it as a server application. And so it was leaked through BuzzFeed that Parler had an AWS spend of $300,000 a month. And so I'm just going to share another here. Like I said, Twitter is hilarious. So here, Corey Quinn, or Quinnypig, as he's known, he's an AWS expert, runs Last Week in AWS. Great, awesome guy. And so he tears down people's applications all the time on Twitter. He has this sweet party trick he does where if you show him your AWS bill, he will completely dissect and figure out with up to 80% accuracy what you're building. And he saw this and said, no way they'll be up in a day. So when I see Corey Quinn say that, I believe him. And so, and there's more to it then. So this kicked off a huge discussion amongst so many people on Twitter, all the people in the tech community, the AWS community, and other cloud services, and just dissecting it with prejudice. And I personally did some investigation myself, and that's actually how I found, which I think probably was already known, the Mercer connection was through LinkedIn. I created a thread being like, hey, who are all the devs at Parler? Because some of them probably you don't want to hire. And that's my opinion. I wouldn't hire anybody who worked for them. Maybe they're not all bad, and some are good people, as the president would say. But yeah, it's the platform is again. So I want to go back to how it's horribly written, right? So it was dissected, and I'm going to share another. Again, Tech Twitter has just nailed all of this down to a T. So Sarah May went through and just did this great, so that at Sarah May walked through all of like the details of how their platform's built. And again, all these guys publicly posted how it's built, what issues they had and problems they had. So they just made it like a field day. And this is the most horrendous thing I've seen come out of the various investigations here. So Alexander Blair, who is one of the, I believe, he is the CTO of Parler. So Chief Technology Officer, basically the guy you call when there's fire. And he says every notification is stored with a unique ID in the database. Over time, we've written over 2.1 billion notifications to the database, which caused a limit we weren't actively aware to get hit, blocking the writing of new notifications and causing weirdness on the site. Basically, as Sarah May outlines here, is that is the stupidest thing, because what it means is anybody who's written an app, especially if it's doing large database operations. Okay, so basically what they did is, as people are adding things to the database, making posts, you add it to a database, and you have what's called a primary key, and that's kind of how you sort it in the database. And they just had that as integers, and they just incremented that. Like the first post is ID number 1, second post ID number 2. You don't do that, because eventually, if you have a large platform, because there's only so many numbers, and there's a limit on that table, on the database, for 2.1 billion on each of those things if you're doing integer based. So what you want to do is use what's called a UUID, Universal Unique Identifier, basically a massive string of letters and numbers. So even if you generate one randomly, it's never going to be the same as any other one that was created. So it's perfectly unique. So they're saying they're using unique IDs and using numbers. Now, another thing I want to share here to help you get into the mindset of how these people develop is, gosh, I have it here. Right. So this is the CEO of Parler's LinkedIn description of how he talks about the Parler app. So this really gave me the most insight into this guy, which is the way he describes this app. And this might not seem obvious to anyone who's not in software, but anyone who is in software will read this. And this reads, when you in detail describe what things you use to build an app in your LinkedIn, that's something an intern does. That's something someone who's young and new is doing, to be like, I worked at this place and I worked on this database and I learned a lot about JavaScript. Yay. Which is great. If you're an intern looking for a job, this is a CEO of a massive hate speech platform. And there's some other insights in here. One of the things I do want to point out is he was actually an AWS employee at one point. Actually, you're not seeing that tab, right? But anyways, on his LinkedIn, it says he worked at AWS and left after 3 months, wrong location. What that means is he was fired from AWS or asked to leave. 3 months is typically the ramp-up period there, and this is public knowledge. And nobody goes through the whole AWS process to get hired, to like go there, interview, get hired, go through the whole process to leave after 3 months because of wrong location. Like, you probably already made the decision at that point. And AWS can be pretty accommodating if you're a good employee. If they want to keep you, they'll find a way they'll go out of their way to make sure you can still somehow be an AWS employee. So I'm almost certain he got fired from AWS for personality issues. That's my opinion, but I'm pretty solid on that. But yeah, so like running down what I just summarized here, right, is Parler is horribly written. It's written by people who are irresponsible. It has massive security holes. It was breached not that long ago because someone left a plain text password in like a WordPress post. And they just got into their servers, which are bare metal servers, which means they're just code they've written to run on a server, thinking they'll be able to move it. But now, since no major cloud provider will take them, there's no one that can host that scale. So it'll be like months before they get back up.
Okay, so first of all, that's fucking amazing. Okay, like that's just it's so interesting. And we talked about this earlier before. Like, I'm not, I know of Parler. I know I get it. I get what was going on. I didn't know all these details. And this is what I love about this is that I'm finding things out as we do this show, and it's awesome. We are about to open the phone lines, and so I want to get some opinions. I want to get some. We got a great. We got a lot of people watching, and we want people to call in. So this is a call-in show. The phone lines are going to open. This is how it goes. Call in. You can speak your truth, right? You got about a minute or two. Speak your truth, or ask a question. Right. The dialogue is about the people on the screen, but we would love to hear your opinion. And your opinion is not right. It's yours. That's what we say here at Call in America. So something that I want to kind of just plant the seed on, and we can the caller can call in about this, or we can open this up later, is that yes, this platform was ridiculous, based on what I'm learning tonight. But is this kind of a platform? Is there a place for this kind of a platform? That's kind of what I want to do. Let's open up the phone lines. And then let's get into that discussion. And we're going to take some calls, guys. Let's do it. Welcome to Call in America. Go ahead.
Oh, do we have a caller?
You were going to say something, Mohit?
Oh, yeah. Actually, I'll let Peter go.
Peter, go.
I think one way of framing this is, is around free speech. So, clearly it's a deep part of our values that we allow free speech to happen. And there are many precedents when pretty awful anti-Semitic stuff is allowed to happen. Of course, in a private platform, it's up to the platform for what they want to do. It's important to note that the immediate cause here was not that Amazon just decided it had it with the right wing. It was really the actions this week and the tight feedback loop between people using a platform to organize and then have assassination threats, or people go off to Congress and call this mayhem. And so when we talk about, is this right, the conversation has to be around this whole notion of clear and present danger. How do we decide when something is really dangerous? And then the other thing it relates to is this distinction between being a publisher and being a platform. Because if you're a platform, Section 230 of the Communications Act that governs the internet says you're not really regulated. It just is like if you make a phone call to me and say something awful, we can't hold the phone company responsible. That's kind of the governing law for platforms. And that's going to be open for really big debate this year.
Interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open. Give us a call. Call me now, 828-475-3344. We want to talk to you guys. It's a hot night. We got some comments in the comment section here. So let's take a stab at this. This is a very well. Thank you, Deborah Gatsby. That's freaking awesome. Okay, Mohib, you seem to be a celebrity tonight. Give us a call, guys. Phone lines are open. 828-475-3344. Call me now. This is Calling America. All right. We want to talk to you right now. I want to know: is there a place for this kind of a platform? Mohib, what were your thoughts on that? Oh, we got our first call.
Hopefully, someone nice.
Welcome to Calling America, caller. What's your name and where you calling from?
Are they there?
Welcome to Call America.
Hey guys, it's David.
Hey David, how you doing, my friend? David, where are you calling from?
Arizona.
Talk to us, David. What's your thought or what's your question?
No, I mean, honestly, I agree with the whole shutdown and policing it because of the actions that took place on Wednesday earlier this week. The president clearly showed that he uses his social media to go ahead and rally, people that support him. And the ramifications of his actions, took the lives of five people in Washington, D.C. over something that was never going to change in the first place. So, I mean, I think it's really smart for these tech companies because I think there could be actual personal ramifications saying that, it posted his content and they're saying it could come back on them. So they're actually policing it to a certain extent where it's not causing any type of public harm.
David, thank you so much for your call. We're gonna discuss that now. Thank you for calling America.
Yeah, so that actually brings up something I've been thinking about, which is right. So the main issue with Parler is not that like the app itself is inherently evil. Conceptually, there are some interesting ideas there with what they're doing, but it's that it's unchecked. So with this clear and present danger, as Peter was talking about, and you don't have people policing that platform, that run that platform, then it's run amok and it's dangerous. That means somebody can organize on there, use it for malicious purposes, and they're not doing anything to remove that. They're not making an effort. They're allowing it. It's negligence, right? It's inaction. Well, the other thing I wanted to say there is, so I've been hounding John Matz on LinkedIn. And in that thread, someone brought this up, and the thing here is like they're like, well, if it weren't for 230, Section 230, Twitter and Amazon could get in trouble for all of this. I'm like, you realize without Section 230, John Matz is going to jail because he's now liable for everything on there.
Right.
And so there's that crazy cognitive dissonance there with.
And Mohib, if I might set some of the historical context here. Look, here we are, 2020. The blogosphere and social media as we know it began 20 years ago or so. AOL, 10, 15 years before that. From the very beginning of social media, it just turns out you needed moderation, right? AOL had to have moderators. Twitter clearly found that out. You look at the amount of stuff that Facebook has to do to take down either hate speech or people murdering people or stuff like that. And along comes a platform that says, we don't need that. That's the not free speech idea. It turns out that's just a really lousy business idea because it doesn't work. And the CPO was doing silly stuff. I'm sure if they reconstitute this thing and let it go, they're still going to cut it down because then one day they're going to turn on all people who are there. So that turns out to be a bad idea. Also, in the history of speech, remember, they shut it down because they saw an immediate threat. I'd love to give you a quick backstory to this whole question about when do we shut down speech. And this goes to the beginning of the 20th century. There were two great Supreme Court cases. And one talked about the clear and present danger test, and the other was the imminent lawless action test. It's how the Supreme Court slogged through 20th century and mass media. And the TLDR version is that this test got tougher. Early on, Justice Holmes wrote clear and present danger. And then the Warren Court came along in the 60s and said, there has to be imminent lawless action. And Holmes, who wrote clear and present danger, later dissented with himself, suggesting that no, you really need a very high bar to suppress political speech. And he wrote, we should be eternally vigilant against attempts to check the expression of opinions unless they so imminently threaten immediate interference with the lawful and pressing purpose of the law that an immediate check is required to save the country. To save the country. There was Justice Holmes writing 100 years ago that a line speaks to us directly today. So in a way, when Amazon and Jack Dorsey decided to cut off Trump's feed and Parler, this was literally a save the country moment. I think there was just, in addition to the business issues, probably real threats, security threats that we haven't even heard about yet that just drove what we are talking about tonight.
Okay, so yes, I want to say yes. And here's my thoughts though. Like, I guess my question is, what is the definition of free speech? Like what? So let's get into like what actually is free speech. If you are the we live in a capitalist country. Let's get into it, right? So that means you can go out and you can do anything. You can create a business selling dog poop if you wanted to. Right? You can sell dog poop, and that can be your business, and you could do that. So if I create a social media platform where anything goes, but but essentially, and I'm just asking questions here, right?
Yeah.
Because my role on this show is to always challenge and push the envelope and get the full perspective. So, if I create this platform that now that I can't push out there because it's not allowed, like, do I actually have free speech? Does that actually exist? And it's a question for anybody. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open. Let's get into discussion. Give us a call, 828-475-3344. Call me now. Let's talk about it. What are you guys' thoughts?
So with regards to that, I think of it this way. If I have I have an open mic at my house and I invite a bunch of my friends and some guy shows up and he starts shouting, "Hey, we should kill Mohib," I would say, "Get out of my house." He has a right to say that. Actually, he doesn't, because that is hate speech. That is inciting violence. But I have every right to remove him from my house. Now, Twitter is Jack Dorsey's house. He's made an app. He's hired people to build it. It's his app. It's his freedom to make that app. It's a free market. And he has the right to decide who can use that platform based on terms and conditions that are that exist actually to, protect people and protect the liability of the company. So actually, Trump should have been removed forever. The actual violation of free speech was Trump using his power as president as leverage to lean on Twitter and say, hey, if you delete this, you're deleting things that are supposed to be in the National Archives, right? Every Trump tweet is a National Archives thing. Like there's a law that requires those to be archived, something of that sort. I'm not a lawyer. So basically they were stuck in the rock and a hard place for a long time. And now they're like, okay, this is definitive proof. We have to get him off. Even if we get sued, no one's going to sue us for this. And they can't. I mean, Twitter removes people all the time. People get banned from online platforms. No one ever made a stink about the end of free speech. Well, I'm sure people have, but no one's won that lawsuit. That's not free speech because it's a private platform. Nobody,
Yeah.
they can still say what they want. They're not being arrested. Free speech is free speech as long as you don't go to jail for it.
Understood. Peter, what are your thoughts, man?
Well, of course, look, there's a couple of things here. When we say free speech protected in the Constitution, that says that the government shall make no law abridging it. Very different than a private company. In fact, you could argue that Apple deciding not to put something on its platform is an act of free speech. Steve Jobs, his case, if you don't like that app, that's his free speech.
Yeah.
Another issue that's going on here is a matter of scale. The United States, we've been free speech absolutists, right? We protect more speech than other Western democracies like Canada or Great Britain. And this has been a big part of our creed. Social media is changing it because the nature of the media is changing. Early on, there was a barrier to create the press. Right?
Peter, we got our next call, my friend. We got our next call.
Okay, let's take a call.
Oh, they tried to call. Let's give us a call back, guys. We just missed your call, or your call went out or something like that. Give us a call. We want to hear from you. We're going to turn it back over to Peter to finish his stuff. Oh, there you go.
Oh, yeah. By the way, we have 40 seconds left until Parler ends.
Celebrate this. Yeah.
Welcome to Call America. This is Welcome to Call America. Caller, where are you calling from, and what's your name?
Hey, Kunal.
Hi. Welcome to Call America. What's your name?
Kunal.
Hi, Kunal. Where are you calling from? Where are you calling from?
San Francisco.
San Francisco. We got San Francisco in the house. What's your thought or your question? Kamal, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so Peter and I were actually discussing earlier. I just wanted to share an interesting thought that I feel their goal is going to be to call out anyone who suppresses, any kind of right-wing thoughts in the social platform by calling it publishing. Because if you alter or filter any information on these platforms, they're going to treat them as news outlets like New York Times. And it will be interesting if that goes to the Supreme Court. But even if that argument fails or succeeds, they have a backdoor entry, which is ironic because if you remember the gay wedding cake case that went to the Supreme Court, that means that you can use now the free speech or the First Amendment to refuse service, being a private company, to any citizen for any reason, really. So I don't think it makes sense. And I think the real question is like if these platforms do suppress these voices, is that the right thing? Because the echo chamber is going to be moved somewhere else, on other platforms. And and what is the outlet? Like, what happens to society as a whole? I think that's like a larger conversation.
Kamal, thank you so much.
This is the right way to do it.
Kamal, thank you so much for your call. We're going to discuss that now. Thank you. Peter, what are your thoughts?
So there's an irony here, which is it was the right that pioneered this challenge that said a shop does not have to make a cake for someone who they disagree with. And it's also ironic that it is people on the right who are shocked that private businesses are making decisions in an unregulated manner, right? So there's an irony here that goes on. But beyond just making fun of it, there is a matter of scale that's different. With the rise of social media, and by the way, I was part of this. We were so excited as these platforms were being built. We were democratizing things, we were opening things up, abolishing the fact that there were just a few publishers. And what you find a few years later is when you give an awful lot of people the platform, and then you get this echo chamber thing where they start believing, more and more of the rarefied thing of just what they're believing, you get this bad green echo of fake news that can then lead to action, or lead to, as we've seen, inciting action. So this is a tough policy issue for a nation that believes in free speech, because it turns out when you have a whole lot of it, it behaves differently. And that's the reason we're about to have this big Section 230 fight. Section 230 was created because people thought we should not hold the platform responsible. We need free speech. And this is going to be a very big issue this year. Remember, President Trump is trying to get his budget passed last week, wanted to abolish it so he could go after Twitter. But it will be, my point here is that this is going to be a very big issue that and it's going to be the biggest regulatory thing tech has faced in probably forever.
Mohib, you were saying earlier, are we at that time? What's up?
Yeah, Parler, the server should be down. The website does still load, but actually earlier I think they got.
Can we pull it up?
Yeah, here.
Hey, Mohib, also let's tell some true Parler stories. Like you and I were hacking the system and having fun. So,
I guess I can officially tell that story.
Officially tell that story.
But I want to show this. So the site is up. I'm going to refresh that there. But I don't think it's on Amazon servers anymore. So earlier, I tried to log in with one of Peter's dummy accounts. Okay. And I was monitoring in that console tab there. So when you go to web page on Google, you can open up an inspector, and that lets you watch everything that's going on. And I saw that like requests for authentication weren't going through. Wow. It was just 400 requests, bad requests. It was just, and I was using credentials that Peter had saved for. So like
you were doing that prior to the cutoff time, right? So because that's what I was walking into, is that you guys were thinking that it was already down. So that's very interesting.
Yeah. So my theory right here is that what they've done is they preemptively started moving things off, or things broke. As very possible. Again, it's bare metal, so they're. I don't think they've optimized much for traffic. So they probably stood up a dummy page while they're getting the backend running. So a website is a front end and a back end. So the part you see, the interface, and then the back end, the server that does all the data stuff.
So we got
you're right, and Nick Pander there could be right. It could be the CloudFront is caching it, but I would imagine their CloudFront should be done. And I am refreshing, a hard refresh, so we'll check in a moment. That's a good point there. By the way, Nick Pander, Evan has been engaging with me on Twitter. He should totally call in because he found some great insights.
Call in, my friend. The phone lines are open, 828-475-3344. We have Kunal, who says Parler's up. Kunal, thank you for calling in from San Francisco, by the way. That was awesome. Please share the stream. And so Kunal says that he's on the app.
So Peter was on there earlier and said he was only getting posts up to a certain amount of time. So my theory is that the mobile app is either caching or part of the API might have still been up. I mean, these are all assumptions we're making. So it could be that AWS hasn't properly cut down the servers yet. It could be that they've found some temporary shit.
I've still got the app up on my mobile phone, and I'm not seeing any comments that are older than 30 minutes. And before, you were getting hundreds of comments a minute because everybody's yakking at everybody. And there hasn't been a post for about 15 minutes. So if anything, it slowed down. I'd like to tee up how you hacked your really fun hack of Parler. Remember how we said that it got started because a lot of social media people were defecting to Parler. They said, you want to go to Parler because screw Twitter? Well, he did a hack on that because he decided to pick a famous mainstream media person and become his Parler presence. You want to tell us about that, Mohib?
Oh, yeah.
I remember this.
So this is the first time I'll be sharing this story publicly because I'm not that afraid of them anymore. So this actually ended up on PolitiFact. So basically I created a fake Tucker Carlson account. And it originally started as me trolling. I posted some weird stuff, posted some subversive stuff leading them to like facts about horrible stuff Trump has done. And all I did was make an account called Tucker Carlson. So a parody account. This was by no way libel or defamation. This was a parody for fun, joke, humor, if any lawyers are watching. And I thought, okay, no way anybody will fall for this. It's one letter difference. But naturally it did. It was getting followers like left and right. And what I've learned is the best way to convince people who are susceptible to conspiracy theories, generally people who are right-leaning, is to give them an inch of what they want. So there's a lot of like insecurity involved with like beliefs and ideas within that civil because they're being shown the real worldview right now. Like the past 4 years we've been showing them their true face of like all these people they follow. So when you give them a little taste of the thing they want, and at the time they were so disillusioned with Fox for calling the election for Trump that they were calling for Tucker Carlson to leave because they were happy to drop Fox, but Tucker Carlson they couldn't let go. So they were like, "Oh, he's moving to Newsmax. He's moving to Newsmax." I'm like, "Okay, I'll find a way to disappoint them while at the same time seeing if this would work." And I didn't think it would work. And so I made this post where I gave them what they wanted, even though I knew it was a lie, that Tucker Carlson was leaving Fox. I said, "The American people spoke their truth. Fox News is over. I'll be starting at Newsmax next month." And then said something about, like, "I'm grateful for the time at Fox, blah, blah, blah." Something believable. The account reached 1,000 followers before it was nuked. But at that point, it had been shared a bunch. And then, nothing really happened. So I went to sleep, woke up the next day. It's on PolitiFact. Because people screenshot it and shared it everywhere. And then later, either that day or the next day, Tucker Carlson addressed it on his show, where he.
And this was all fake. This was you.
Yeah, this is just me. This is just me screwing around. And
Get the hell out of here.
And so when he went live and said, over the weekend we got a lot of calls and emails saying, "Are you leaving Fox? Blah blah blah." And he says, "No, ironically, I'm actually going to expand the show." They're expanding his show. And so that was the nail in the coffin for a lot of people, because they're like, "Oh, he's a shill." Because they got excited, right? Their hero was going to leave Fox. They got really excited. This hopes and dreams were made from very obviously fake post. Very, very extreme. If you looked at any of the other things I had posted on that account, you'd be like, "This is obviously fake." And I thought that was obvious. And I guess I lost faith in humanity for a bit that day. And they believed it. They spread it like a wildfire. People still to this day believe it. And it made them hate Tucker Carlson more. And I didn't expect to see that happen, but that was a result of it, right? That was a result of their disappointment and their disillusionment that he's now they've all these other conspiracies have spawned from that he's being paid off to shut up and this and that.
This phenomenon of turning on people who aren't true believers is kind of a feature of Parler. So, for example, 2 nights ago, it was Mike Pence is not only a traitor, but he's a pedophile. That was like the big thing this week, because Mike Pence, as you know, in the Electoral College in Congress, after everything was upset, presided over.
Parler's down.
Huh?
Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Parler's down. I just saw in the comments.
That's wonderful.
Parler is down.
The culture of Parler, it is said that people on the left are more discriminating, right? But the left argues with itself. The right, it's much easier for the right to get behind one message and amplify it. Even the framing of things like pro-life and stuff. But if your disposition is to get behind one idea, it becomes an amazing echo chamber. And when I first joined Parler, it was kind of like someone would say, "The left sucks," and then 8 million people said, "No, it sucks even more." And it was just like a humorous rehashing of just agreement. And then I realized odd things, like you don't say to somebody, "You're an asshole," you call them a pedophile. I mean, 30 times a day. It's just like, you used to have evidence to have these charges. That was just a thing. As much as we make fun of it, it turns out if you scroll back, all of the stuff that we saw this week in the storming of the Capitol, it was all there, but in a way it was dismissed. Here's one post that I found literally, I think after, it was probably Wednesday night, but this is a guy posted a week and a half ago, and he said, you know how the Berlin Wall fell? How Prague was liberated from the leftists? How Hungary's people got back at their government from the left? They all surrounded their capitals and demanded the resignation of their Congress. In our case, it would be those who vote on January 6th to allow fraud to be used in our elections. In every single case, the government threatened violence against the people, but more people showed up and would not let the leftists out of the Capitol. Hundreds of thousands surrounding the buildings. No one was allowed to leave without resigning. The power of the people prevailed. Trump is the commander of National Guard in D.C. No shooting is required. The people got their government back. I do know Americans do not like being told to be fraud. Last week's wacky post was this week's accurate battle plan.
That's insane.
Oh, so you guys spoke about something that I want this to. So first of all, the phone lines are still open, guys. We want to hear from you guys. It is 828-475-3344. This is getting hot, man. Parler is down. So Peter, you talked about echo chambers, right? So I kind of want I want to pivot, and I want to talk about echo chambers, and I want to talk about, and I want to ask, and this is for everybody out there, the viewers out there as well. Let's get into this conversation about how, like, is there risks to echo chambers, right? And echo chambers can go both ways, right? Like, so I just planting those two seeds there, and I'd like to know what you guys' thoughts are about echo chambers, and like, do you feel like, you know, Parler was shut down because it was very, very extreme to the right? Do you think that there's echo chambers on the other side, you know, and does this pendulum swing both ways, and what's the risk of that? The floor is open.
So I'll say I have plenty of friends who have ideas I disagree with. I've definitely done quite a bit of a purge this year. Also, I do want to point out that, like, whoever pointed out that it was probably CloudFront caching, that's made us still see Parler is right. It's just probably taking a few minutes for it to roll out to different regions because AWS splits things up. So you'll all get to enjoy the great Parler death. But yeah, so there's the way I look at it, right? There's echo chambers do exist, but at the same time, you know who I've never let into my friend group? A crazy guy who's running around on the street saying they're injecting chips into your brain and the government's tracking you. I generally don't see value in engaging with them, right? And so now the people that used to be like the stereotypical, that's a crazy person, everybody agrees that, yeah, nobody's putting chips in your brain and tracking you and sending laser beams into your eyes from space or whatever. And that's what a lot of the people on Parler are at that point. Like all the QAnon stuff, so there's a certain point where, like, yeah, we're probably pushing too many people out, and people who are getting mixed in with some of the very extremist right-wing, supporters and conspiracy theorists. And at the same time, though, for a lot of us, in this last year, it's easy to forget with how so much happens in such a condensed amount of time is the feelings that we all felt, and a lot of us still do, of fear and anger for our lives from cops, from police, from fascists. And so part of removing those people was, there might be a resulting like left-wing echo chamber,
right?
But at least we'll be safe. And the right-wing aren't in danger by having left-wing people on the space. They're bringing your negativity and hate. And part of it, though, is like how we respond, right? There's a push-pull, like people when they go on the defensive because they don't realize there's just something racist, and we push hard on them, which, you and I had experience with someone recently, without going into detail, that like, we easily could have gone like hard in. Instead, we're like, let's take a soft approach in this one case.
Of course, and a very transparent approach. Speaking to that to me, you said something. Oh, we got a nice call, ladies and gentlemen. I love it. Welcome to Call America. What's your name, caller, and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's just Kunal again from San Francisco.
Hey, how you doing? Welcome back. What's your thought or question, my friend?
Yeah, I wanted to share a thought on the echo chamber question.
Yeah.
Love the cat, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Her name's Bo. Go ahead.
So I think it's really a side effect of how targeted, paid targeted advertising works. So if you look at two models of Facebook and TickTok, for example, Facebook, in a way, the way they distribute content is it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like the echo chambers are created by people liking the same content in creating groups. So it's not just unique to right-wing or politics. I think it's just the way the platform is designed, and it's not good. But if you look at TikTok, it's really built to discover new content, and I think that's where the platforms have to be a little careful as to how people see what they see, and Facebook is one extreme. Whereas we'll see how that evolves. That was really the thought I wanted to share.
Kumar, thank you so much for calling in. We're going to discuss that now.
Yeah, so I want to say something quick about that because I know I tend to droll. Is that algorithmic bias can be very dangerous in creating that. There's one thing to design your echo chamber based on people that you choose, but like when you start seeing people you already have in your chamber being pushed out because their posts aren't getting engagement, so you just stop seeing them. Like, how many people have you forgotten because the algorithm decided to stop showing them to you?
Hey, man, now you're talking some stuff. Peter, I want to give you a moment to chime in. And go ahead.
Well, I think this is an important distinction. As social media started, we saw a natural creation of echo chamber, because as you moved from 3 networks and a few newspapers to everybody could create a site, you started having people of like interest connecting to each other. And I started seeing this around the year 2000 when I was chairman of Technorati. We did networking analysis, who linked to who. And we were very excited at the beginning of the blogosphere. Everybody was listening to everybody. It was kind of cool. Then you started seeing that people on the left connect to the left, the right connect to the right. And you saw this mitosis. You saw this blob that separated out. And we were all really disappointed that kind of people went to their corners. And of course, MSNBC and Fox is a good example of that. Then we enter this algorithmic world where the business model of Facebook is tuned to get your attention. And it turns out titillating things or conspiracy things or things that get more get more attention. So the classic example of this is when a young mom goes on Facebook and she's searching for something for her kid, she's 4 clicks away from joining a group about anti-vaxxers, because that meme propagates more and gets more attention, right? And that's and then you play that out several thousand cycles, and you end up with people believing in conspiracy theories, and then the echo chamber of Trump says something, it gets reinforced, and all you see is election stuff. So that's kind of where we are today. We have built machines of math destruction, or what Sophia Noble talks about, the new Jim Code, right? So we've invented algorithmic mechanisms that reinforce the worst parts of our society. And this is when Roger McNamee wrote his book about Facebook. He was an original investor in Facebook, and he wrote a book called Zucked, and he basically said to Facebook, your algorithm's going to lead to no good. And then the 2016 elections happened, and he basically said the only solution is to break them up. And Yael Eisenstadt, who was a friend and who had been a security advisor to Vice President Biden, was hired as Facebook's head of security. She'd also been a CIA agent. And during the 2016 election, she tried to break that cycle, but Facebook didn't, because they were hooked to their business model, which is what brings us to this present issue that it is this machined AI-based robotic amplification that is the new thing on our landscape, and that has probably has amplified the fact that Trump is both a charismatic, kind of autocrat demagogue, but demagogue plus AI is a new phenomenon.
Yeah. Okay. So touch on a couple of things here. This is something I really want to kind of touch base on. And here's the deal: is that I want to bring up Black Lives Matter. And here's the reality. Here's why I want to bring up. Excuse me, Skeleton. Here's why I want to bring up Black Lives Matter, is because that was one of the first times that I realized that these echo chambers actually truly existed. Because I have a good friend who's actually going to be doing next week's Call America show. So next week I'm just going to do a quick little shameless plug. Hey, we want to do that. Next week Saturday we're doing Make America Great Again. It is a virtual roundtable that's going to be happening here on Call America. I'm going to be hosting it with my buddy Kevin. And I think Mohib's actually going to be a virtual guest on that one as well. And we're going to talk about what Make America Great Again actually was. We're going to have everybody from all different perspectives talking about it. So I want you to join us. So now I have a buddy who was a Trump supporter, right? I have a buddy who's a Trump supporter, and we got into really great conversations. And this is somebody that I loved dearly. I love dearly, like somebody who's been in my life. And I was like, I'm not going to write this person out. I'm not going to do that. And like, I'm just going to move past my stuff. And so what happened is that we were able to come together and we talked a lot about echo chambers. There were some things that he was saying, and I was like, baby, you're in an echo chamber. That's not true. Like, that's not true. And then he challenged me to say, well, if we're going to do this and we're going to do this together, and you're going to step out of your comfort zone and I'll step out of my comfort zone. And so what I did was I joined an All Lives Matter group. I joined an All Lives Matter group, and I came in there, and I came from a place of I just want to understand. Say what you want to say. I have no opinion about it. I have questions. And what I found was, I also joined. This was another thing that I joined. So I also joined a very offensive meme group, because I was into making memes at the time, right? And I had a lot, and I was getting out a lot of my aggression out by making these very like, white people do this type of memes, right? What I found is that once the idea of not disrespecting a culture, but really kind of like pointing out a stereotype in a culture normalized for me, I didn't care about it anymore. And what I realized was like I wasn't offended anymore. Because if everything's offensive, then nothing is. And
so are you saying you were numbed out in a bad way, like something offensive wasn't offensive and that's bad, or were you more empathetic?
No, I was like, oh, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? Like, we're putting so much emotion into things that don't really matter. And what's happening is that we're being so triggered, and triggered was my word of 2019. 2019, trigger was my word. And that was when I finally understood what trigger mean. And people took it as an insult for the most part. And it's not an insult. If you're triggered by something, you need to clock in. Why are you upset? Why does this make you mad? That has something to do with you. It has nothing to do with what's being said or what you're seeing. It has everything to do with how you are perceiving this, right? And how you are navigating through this, right? So I learned triggered, and then I learned these echo chambers. And I realized, like, what are we doing here? And I was just like, and so that's why this conversation is so important and so amazing to me. Is that like, what is free speech? And like, if somebody says something that's completely offensive and that I don't agree with, is what's wrong with them saying that if I don't put emotion into it, and if I'm not offended by it?
By the way, that what you just said, it's an argument for open-mindedness and curiosity.
Right.
The reason I joined Parler literally was I was reading about it, but I knew I was an echo chamber. I'm reading The Atlantic, The New Republic, and my friends on Facebook. So I'm
let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, so like, what do these other people think, right? And so I go in there, and you start trying to get into the mindset of true believers. I mean, one thing you learn is they're absolutely convinced the elections were stolen, that everything was fabricated, and you kind of get, if they're convinced this is the world, it is a small step from there to believe if you storm the Capitol, you're doing what the founders asked you to do.
There you go. But that's where we're at, and that's what's happening is that we are. And so again, talking about this pendulum, and this is what's so interesting to me is that yes, so okay, great. And Mohib, you kind of spoke to this earlier when you said people are safer in the world that we're trying to push for, right? But is that really true? If somebody truly is not into homosexuality, is it our right to push it onto them, to say to them that they have to be? That's a world that I don't want to live in. I'm just going to be perfectly honest with you. I learned a lot through Black Lives Matter in that, like, whoa, dude, like we are this whole idea of being an extremist of this yes or no, this pass or fail life is that's a very slippery slope of like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Everything is awesome, but there's some people who truly aren't okay with this. We still have to exist with those people. So it's very interesting. And I kind of, I want to take some calls and kind of get into that conversation. And, is there risk to being, being in a place where no one can say anything, to where like, you can't be racist? Is there risk to listen, I'm a black man. I'm going to ask that question. You know what I mean? Is there risk to saying you can't be racist? Well, the reality is this, guys, is that what's the guy that took out what's his name? Kyle Rittenhouse was 15 years. Kyle Rittenhouse is 15 years old. You know what I mean? Or how old? He's a 17. 17 years old. That racism isn't going anywhere. How do we live with racism? I think that is the better conversation. These crazy ideas aren't going anywhere. How do we live with these things? And do so in a way that is peaceful. So phone lines are open, guys. Give us a call. I want let's get into it, man. I'm having a great time. So give us a call 828-475-3344. Floor is open.
So my thought is we don't have to live with racism, but we can put in ways to like stem it, to not give it a platform, right? Racism is going to always exist in one shape or form, but we don't have to give it any power or platforms of power or allow it to proliferate. And then as we do that, it doesn't become like life or death for us to like have to go out and ask for it and fight for it and go through all these legal loopholes and all this effort that goes into making sure that we can have some level of equity. When it's at that point, then, you know, it'll be easier for everybody to start learning ways to deal with someone who has racism in a constructive way. Because right now it's like there's just so much. Like, yeah, I can talk with somebody one-on-one and get them to understand that, like, what they're saying is not okay. But then I have to, like, sift through layers of their traumas, their growth, their misunderstanding, or the roots of all this stuff. And when they, because there's a lot of this that's not discussed, which is like emotional flashbacks and, like, we call, like, triggers, and, like, whether emotional or traumatic, that those have a play. And when somebody gets super defensive when you call them out on something, they that's coming from a place that is tied to some other experience they've had or experiences they've had over time, and so they're just resistant because they're stuck in this emotional flashback.
So much of the conversation that we're having this year are around, you know, particular really flashpoints incidents, right? So we're having this conversation this week with Twitter banning and Parler banning because people moved to action and had an insurrection. And you could argue that that's not something new this week. That's a continuation of a war that started in 1860, and we've been dealing with the Civil War ever since. But beyond disagreeing with someone or allowing someone to have a racist view, kind of with their people in their space, you know, this week's conversation is what happens when that migrates to real threats and to action. And likewise, this summer, the George Floyd protests began not just because people had views, but because repeatedly we'd seen this police violence that repeatedly flashes up and hasn't been dealt with. So it's these systemic issues. These systemic issues strike me as the kind of thing that as a society you kind of have to deal with, which is, you know, after the riots in 1967, there was that famous Kerner Commission report that basically said, if this stuff isn't dealt with, it's going to repeat. So I mean, that set of things just seems like, you know, and when Lyndon Johnson drove the Civil Rights Act or Dr. King moved us forward, that's what progress looked like. We're looking for that, you know, even as people can say what they want privately. It just seems like a matter of degree.
Yeah. Okay. So, man, first of all, I just want to thank you both for being a part of this conversation. It's truly phenomenal, man. Like this is what needs to be. These are the conversations that need to be talked about right now. Is that, like, how do we live together? You know, we are not going to change the way people think based on how they were raised, who raised them, where they were raised, and in what conditions they were raised in. We're not going to change that. And so someone comes up truly believing because their Bible or their Quran or whatever says that homosexuality is a sin, or that black people should not lie in bed with white people, or whatever it is. If that's truly what they believe, you know, Peter, you said something that was very, very, very powerful and interesting. Is that, like, you know, this whole idea of, like, violence, but, you know, making someone violent. But my question is it saying to them that you have to do business with gay people, even if you don't agree with that? Isn't that forcing violence upon them? And so now it's like, what? So again, no one's going anywhere, right? We're all going to be living here, and people's views are going to be people's views. And the only way people's views are going to be able to change are, you know, from generationally, right? So that's going to take a long time. It's not going to happen today. So how do we deal with today? And yes, and we came from a place where it was like, you can't be black in America, right? Like, you can't walk on the street. You have to pick cotton all your life, right? So we came from a place of that, right? And I'm just using black because that's what relates to me, right? So, like, it can be anything, you know. It can be women, it can be anything, right? But we come from this place of hardcore racism and discrimination. But is the exact opposite of it? Is that not the same thing? That's what I want to discuss tonight. 828-475-3344. Where's the happy medium, guys? Floor's open. Yeah.
I would say that, right, you brought up that point about, like, it being, like, doing violence against someone, right? Like if you're forcing someone to like do something for you because even though they disagree with where they stand. Although I think it comes down to like what you believe is right or wrong, really. And at the end of the day, it's wrong to discriminate against someone based on like their age, race, sex, orientation, all that stuff. It's the law. There's some gray areas in the law, thanks to our good old boy Trump.
Yeah, right.
And like which actually was passed. That law went into effect the other day, unfortunately.
Right. But there's also some oversteps, right? Like there's some shit that happens. There's some shit that is clearly racist that happens. There are white people who get away with things that black people could never do. The whole thing with the Capitol. Oh, you got to call us back, guys. I think you're calling and hanging up. Phone line's open. Give us a call back. But the whole thing that happened with the Capitol, black people could never do that. Brown people could never do that. And yet it exists, right? And it's not legal, but yet it's here. It's an oversight, right?
I think this is a good opportunity to show that video of
Let's get into it, baby.
that airport video. Since we're talking about like, so all those people that were running the Capitol are now finding out that they are on no-fly lists. And so they're learning what it is to be brown in America, basically.
Well, but see, they walk away with their life down now.
They walk away with their life. They do this and they walk away. Whereas I would have been shot just for being there.
Baby, I would have been shot for showing up for being lost, right? Like I didn't even mean to be there. I would have been shot. And so we have to talk about what needs to be talked about.
Oh yeah.
Black and brown.
Wait. After 9/11, being a terrorist meant being an Islamic person.
Right.
And then under Trump, being a terrorist meant being a black protester for BLM. And we now realize that the terrorist is us, speaking as like a white guy. And that's what the video points out. And
let's take a look at it now.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
I love every single one of you, but this is what they do to us. They kick me off the plane, they call me a fucking terrorist, and they want to fucking ruin my life.
And I gotta show the other one here. It's so funny, right?
This is the first time I'm seeing these videos, guys. So this is fucking hilarious, man.
Oh man, this is why I've had such a great week. Is just watching them all get their comeuppance. This is another one.
What's happening? There's no way. Oh, hold on. Sorry. Okay, is it ready to go? Here we go.
Oh yeah. Do you ready?
Yeah.
This is the lady who was seen in the other video comforting the crying toddler guy who was kicked off a flight.
Freedom of speech.
They're all on the no-fly list for being radical white terrorists.
Wait, they're being kicked off the plane because they're on a no-fly list?
Because they were at the insurrection. Because they're terrorists.
They're on the no-flight list, like period.
Mm-hmm.
This is the lady.
Whoa! No, okay. So
Yeah.
You know what? Let me. Okay, let me give credit where credit is motherfucking due. If they are on the no-fly list, that's some serious. Hey, man. Whoa, white people, y'all waking up, man.
Oh, and it's about to get worse for them too. So this is a crash over here. Donk NB has been crawling and keeping a tally of like who was at these things. So basically, hacker Twitter is basically doing their best to like document all this stuff. Everything's being archived. I mean, from the get-go, I forget the page. It was like a Reddit page or something where people were asked to basically, this is the archive page. All the videos, footage you find, put it in here, crawl through all the faces. I mean, people are doing the FBI's job for them.
This is a really important point to make, which is there is enormous justice to be done here, and lots of people were deleting things, and there's just a group of, you call them free speech warriors or just kind of anti-terrorist warriors who have been cataloging this stuff, creating archives, working with the FBI to do this. And, this is a turning of tables, right? Because our national security state, built after kind of 9/11 or whatever, was largely built to go after other people, right? But it's a perfect apparatus that can swing into action now. And there is this is the good bit about citizen journalism and distributed properties, which is that stuff doesn't go away and can be used. And it's going to be very interesting with this next Department of Justice to exactly the same thing that amazed you a moment ago, which was these people on a no-fly list. The FAA figured out, or the no-fly people figured out, what law enforcement people, state police officers and such, were leaving wherever they were and going to Washington on Wednesday. And now they're all on suspect lists, right? So the ability, and this could be an apotheosis for this nation, right? We're going to be prosecuting an awful lot of people. This is a lot more than one Tim McVeigh, right? This is lots of thousands of people. And that they will be a big teaching, learning, change moment.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, we are headed to the end of our show, man. We are going to go to 140. We're going to go to 145. So we got 5 minutes. In the final 5 minutes, I want to know what your final thoughts are. What your final thoughts are, and then go ahead and tell the people where they can find you. Okay, and then we'll start with you, Mohit. The floor is yours. Take about 2 minutes. And what's your final thoughts on everything? What do you think? Where do you think is going to happen next? It's 2021. They stormed the Capitol already. Parler's being shut down. What's happening next in America? The floor is yours.
All right. Well, so one, I called this shit 4 years ago.
Let's take our final call.
Let's do it.
And then we'll get right into you. Welcome to Calling America. This is Kelvin, Mohit, and Peter. Who's calling and where are you calling from?
Hey, it's Kunal from San Francisco.
Kunal, man, my friend, what are your final thoughts? The phone lines are now down, ladies and gentlemen. The phone lines are closed. Kunal, what are your final thoughts, my friend? Go ahead, give it to us.
So, very interesting topic. So my final thoughts are this, few people on the no-fly list, few people in jail, all that is fine. But bottom line, about 75 million people voted for Trump because they, in their echo chamber, have been brainwashed that all these people on the coast and on the left are just led by Pelosi and are going to turn this country into a communist country, and they're, the regular worker is not going to be heard anymore. And I think what's needed is for them to get more exposure into into the other half of the country, which is happening with this reverse course through COVID. I think that's one of the reasons why Biden got Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada, and so on. And I think that's what's needed more. Those are my final thoughts.
Kanar, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Thank you. That was the final thoughts by Kanar. Thank you, baby. Have a good night.
Sure.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
So,
go ahead. Final thoughts.
Yeah. So actually, what riff there from what Kunal said is that, right, there's that other side of the country that's not going to feel like they have a place to be heard. The problem is they were going off in platforms bubbles where they were being manipulated. Groups like Cambridge Analytica and Parler, which is same people, right? They now that these companies are finally putting the hammer down, right, at the final inning, the internet might have some level of safety where these people can go and they're not going to become radicalized by propaganda from Russia and from all these other sources. They might get pushed to other places. We don't know really what's going to happen next. They're still going to get targeted. But the more you can choke avenues of propaganda, whether it's from the GOP or from QAnon or whoever that is, or Russia and all these other malicious actors, then maybe they'll start to see real things and start to believe facts again. I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. There are still people who dedicate their lives to the JFK conspiracy, and that was one small conspiracy, right? Now we have that times a million, and all these brainwashed people that might bounce back. They might not ever bounce back. I think at some point we're going to have a mental health reckoning in this country after we deal with all of the immediate dangers. I do think the next few weeks are going to get more intense. As much as I hate to say it, there's already violence being started in random acts here and there. Our state capital, there's people there probably right now. That's gonna escalate the closer we get. But at least now, since we've had this wake-up call, that the powers that be, that still have any form of control over their areas, might actually do something to stop it. The FBI at least has been monitoring white supremacist organizations for a long time. So I'd say stay safe, don't counter-protest, it's not worth it. let's get through January 20th and see what happens after that, because that's going to be crazier. But do enjoy the hell out of the internet and watching all the rats leave the sinking ship, watching Parler die, watching all of these. Like, yes, there's a little toxicity that comes from like how we've been talking about these things. Like myself, if you look at my feed, it's unhinged. Like, I'm not someone who bullies people, but I have no problem bullying and laughing at racists as their whole like dominion falls apart. So that's kind of where I'm at. So yeah, have fun, be safe. Happy New Year.
Wait,
Hold
hold on, Peter. We'll get to you in just a second. Mohib, where can they find you?
Oh yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Virgil Vox. My actual day job is I build cool robots and stuff. So yeah, I talk about politics a lot, but I follow me for robots and hardware, which there'll be more of after January 20th, I promise.
All right, my friend. Thank you so much, Mohib. Peter, you're going to finish this out. What are your final thoughts, baby? Go ahead. The floor is yours. Take about 2 minutes.
Hey, well, look, we definitely have a deprogramming issue here, or another way of looking at it is clearly an awful lot of the country is believing in things that aren't facts, that are a big lie, and we know throughout history that big lies happen. Mussolini laid on us a very big lie. And fascist Germany a big lie. And we've seen deprogramming before. The Truth and Reconciliation in South Africa was a national deprogramming thing. So on some level, we have to confront the fact that how do you do mass deprogramming? I mean, tactically, you can take people off of platforms, but then there has to be some return to truth. I was listening today, literally driving up here in Lake Tahoe. I tuned into the Patriot, to the right-wing station on XM radio, and the guy from Breitbart was actually trying to talk down some of these right-wing people, and one of his callers called in and said, you know, what bothers me is everyone's talking about what they believe in, but nobody's talking about facts. So on some level, we need to get back to facts. I think this was an extraordinary week. Here we are on a Sunday night. 1 week ago, President Trump's call to action talk, where he was telling people to go to the Capitol, and he was going down to Georgia to get people fired up, hadn't happened. The next day, Tuesday, an election that changed the Senate, that showed that actually, if you propagated a big lie, it was inconsistent with believing in the electoral system, and that switched Georgia and tarnished Trump. The next day, we had this event in the Capitol, in which, in front of all of Congress, people saw the effects of following a demagogue. America moves forward in these fits and starts, right? And we have dark moments and then moments of light. What a teaching moment this is. We've had more history per minute this week, I think, than at any time in my life. And so we have to use this play to figure out how to move forward and how to do accountability. There hasn't been a lot of accountability for this sloppy kind of thinking. And it's going to be accountability and also giving America something to believe in. This is why you need the new administration to get stuff done that's going to move us forward. So I find this a hopeful moment. I think if we hadn't gone through this, more stuff would be festering. And that's why I'm so thrilled we came together tonight. We are celebrating the end of a platform, but what we're really celebrating is a realization of the work to be done. And the fact that, as Churchill pointed out, America will come up with the right idea, but only after it exhausted all the alternatives. And that seems to be the week we're in.
My friend, thank you so much. That's absolutely amazing. Peter, where can they find you?
Oh, well, at Twitter, I'm at Hirschberg, HIRSHBERG, or you can tune into our weekly show on deep science, technology, and the changes that have gone on during COVID, which is at quarantine.today. And we'll be talking about platforming next week.
Amazing. And folks, I'm going to be getting all their contact information. It's going to be updated in the description of this link, so it'll always be here. Here are my final thoughts, ladies and gentlemen. So here's the reality, guys, is that, listen, 2020 happened, right? 2020 happened. And I think that what we're finding is that people are really, we're all going through some shit, man. We're all going through some shit. And I think that the world is really trying to the world is trying to heal, and it's doing it. It's doing it in many, many ways. And I think what I have come to understand about what's happening, as far as my perception of what's happening, is that people are being challenged. We are being challenged, and we are being challenged in every way possible. Every way possible. And I think what we need to understand is that at the end of the day, we all still got to be here together. It doesn't matter. It does not matter what you think versus what somebody else thinks. And I think that there's risk to this pendulum going all the way. I think that the safest place to be is in the middle, and the safest place to be is to meet people where they're at. And I think that is my perception of what's happening in the world. Is hate a good thing? No, it's not. But hate's not going anywhere. How do we live in a world where hate exists? Those are my final thoughts, guys. My name is Kelvin West. I want to thank my guests today, Peter Hirschberg, Mohib Zara. They're absolutely amazing. Call in America. Call in America is a vehicle for open discussion and dialogue. And if you ever want to talk about anything, hit me up, message me, talk to me, email me, do what you got to do. Next week, you're doing Call America, Make America Great Again. We're gonna get into the Trump presidency. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna see exactly, who was he talking to when he said Make America Great Again? What was he talking about? So join us for that. It's on Saturday. I'll put the link in the description of this YouTube video. Thank you so much. My name is Kelvin West. Remember, guys, your opinion is not right. It's yours. Life is good, love is real. That's our show. Oh.